Shalom. Let me get straight into this lesson. Right there. Been anticipating to do this lesson, but I'm going to show you that the so-called white people that you know today that's relabeled themselves as so-called white or Edomites. I'm going to show you without a shadow of a doubt. Now, go to show you how disconnected the people is from the Bible and the history is these people don't use biblical ethnicities. Now, the only ethnicity that they so-called use, quote unquote, is Jewish. That's folly, though. There's no ethnicity known as Jewish people. That's new speak. They created that term, Jew. The letter J wasn't created to 1524, and we never called ourselves Jews. Let's get into this lesson. So, the Bible is alive and well, and you have to understand it to understand what's really going on in this world. If you don't, you're going to be lost. You're going to be under the spirit of the world. You're going to be under the philosophies and the ideologies of the world and the ways you think. So let's get straight into this. So you're looking at the region right here. This is known as Petra today, but this is Mount Seir, where the Edomites dwelled at. And I want you to pay attention to this architecture. Look at that. Look at them columns. What does this remind you of? It reminds you of Greece and Rome. Look at this. And at the bottom of this, right, it says Petra, site of ancient Edom. Let's get a scripture real quick, because I'm going to show you something. Salakia. Genesis 36:8. Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom, Adawam. Right, so Edom. Esau, Edom. So let's go back here. And it says treasury, Salakia. Petra. So this looks like the same thing with the United States Treasury building in Washington, D.C. Matter of fact, let me show you that. Now, Esau Edom cannot hide his identity anymore. It's been exposed. So this is the United States Treasury building in Washington, D.C. So in Mount Seir, let me go back to this image. Salakia. And I'm going to go into some condemning information on these devils right here. You see that column, that pyramid, that triangle shape at the top of Salakia towards the midway point. And you go to the United States Treasury. It's the same architecture. That's how you know it's the same people. They build the same way. You know them by what they do. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah. Look at this. You see that triangle? You see those columns? Go back here. And I did a lesson specifically going into the architecture of these devils. So you go to Greece and you go to Rome, it's the same architecture. Then you know that these are the same people. So let's go to Rome. Look at this. And you see the way they built, right? Just the same way they built in Washington, D.C. is identical to the Roman Empire, to the Greek Empire. That's why you got a term called Greco-Roman. It's the same way they built, the same architecture. All their government buildings are built the same way to let you know that this is the calling card of Esau Edom. It'll be a clue, a major clue. So go to Greece. They build the same way, same people. Look at this, ancient Greece. And they took over, the so-called white man took over what you know as Greece. There was the Eutricians, if I'm not mistaken, that the well there, which was the so-called Japanites. See, it's the same thing, man. Ain't nothing new under the sun. So I'm gonna show you why you need to know this. So the columns, look at this, Greek architecture, which is Edomite architecture from Mount Seir. Right, so you go there today, you'll see this in Petra, where Petra goes into the ancient dwelling place of Mount Seir, Esau Edom. So let's get into this information. How these people have been able to cover this up? This is one of the biggest mysteries to the world. The world is dumbed down and stupid. It says at the top, I want you to pay attention to this. It says 2nd Ezra 6, 7 through 9. And this is important because this is the all end all be all of this is what life is all about. It ain't about your 10-year plan. It says 7. Then answered I and said, What shall be the part asunder of the times? Or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? So it's going back into the kingdom of heaven, right? So Ezra was inquiring on when is the kingdom going to be set up? When do we transition? 8. And he said unto me, From Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob Esau were born of him. Jacob hand held first the heel of Esau, for Esau is the end of the world, which that means end of the age. So this is the end of the world of the way you know it today, the way you live, everything is going to change. And Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So that's the kingdom of heaven, which is the kingdom of Israel. Romans 9 and 13, as is written, in the book of Malachi, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. So so-called God, as you know, hate people. So let's go here. Right here at the top. It says, according to Jewish Encyclopedia, 1925 edition, volume 5, page 41, Edom is modern Jewry. So the Jewish people are Edomites. Then you got the so-called American white, they're Edomites. You got the so-called Britons, they're white, but the original Britons were so-called black people. We go into the word Britain, it means covenant. You know, that was the sons of Jacob, you know, the Israelites. That was in there. Then they got overthrown by Oliver Cromwell. You know, his whole goon squad and the Edomites came back into power during the Renaissance. But that's a whole nother lesson for a whole nother day. Let's get into this right here. This is part of the reason they took the Apocrypha out of the Bible. First Maccabees 1 and 1 at the top. It says, and it happened after Alexander the Greek, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes. So that's going back into the book of Daniel, that this, I think if I'm not mistaken, the he-goat, right, would be the next kingdom that will rise up out of the earth, which would be the Greeks, Edomites. And that he should reign in his stead the first over Greece. 7. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. And his servants bare rule everyone in his place. There was those 4 generals, right? You know, I'll do that. I'll go over that another day. But it says 9, and after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years. And evils were multiplied. Going back into the book of Malachi 1, chapter 1 and 3 through 4. The border of wickedness. Edomites. That's why you got all this perversion, nudity. I mean, you name it. That went on at this time and goes on today. Blasphemy, you know, you got everything under the sun that's going on. It says 10, and there came out them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been hostage at Rome and reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. So this is the Edomites. So let's prove this. Esther 16 and 10, and this is a part of the Apocrypha. They took it out. This is one of the reasons why. It says Esther 16 and 10, for Haman, the Macedonian, the son of Amadah, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood, and for a distance from our goodness, as a stranger received of us. Esther 3 and 10. It says, and the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agate, the Jews' enemies, so the Israelite enemies. I'm kind of bad with these names, man, Salakia. It says right here, Alexander the Greek, so-called white man, who was the son of Philip the Macedonian. We also see that Haman in the book of Esther was a Macedonian. But he was the son of Hammedatha, the Agite. It says 1 Samuel 15:7. It says, and Saul smote the Amalekites. That's the Jewish people today, as you know, as Jewish people. It says from Havala until the comings to Shur, that is over against Egypt. It says 8. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. It says right here, the Macedonians descended from the Agads, who descended from King Agag, who was an Amalekite. Right here, Genesis, and it's backtracking this devil, right? Alexander the so-called Great, which Alexander the so-called demon, lineage, back to Esau. It says right here, Genesis 36, 1, 10 through 12. Now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Adah, the wife of Esau; Reuel, and the son of Bathsheba, the wife of Esau. And the sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, and Gatam, and Kenaz. And Timnah was concubine of Eliphaz, Esau's son. She bare to Eliphaz Amulek. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife. It says right here, Esau grandson is Amalek. Esau grandson is Amalek, who is King Agag descended from, the same King Agag that the Macedonians deceived from, and ultimately Alexander the Greek, the so-called white man. So this is what this the lineage of Alexander the so-called Great, which this was the first kingdom of the Edomites, the Greek Empire, showing you that these were Edomites. And you go to the architecture, and there's many other things I can go into. It traces back to first you had the Greeks, and then what came after the Greeks was the Romans. You had something called the Greco-Roman era, which these are all Edomites, and these go back to Mount Seir, which Mount Seir is with the original dwelling place of Esau, Edom, the so-called white people today. And this is what the world don't know. But we backtracked, through, and you can screenshot this and backtrack it for yourself. So we backtracked this devil, Alexander the Greek, all the way back into Amulek, which Amulek goes back to Esau, Edom. That's his genealogy. You know what I'm saying? So we ain't making nothing up. Hopefully this has been edifying. Call Hala Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rachak Kodash. Shalom.